لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار ثم أما بعد يقول الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم كان الناس أمة واحدة فبعث الله النبيين مبشرين ومنذرين وأنزل معهم الكتاب بالحق ليحكم بين الناس فيما اختلفوا فيه وما اختلف فيه إلا الذين أوتوه إلا من بعد ما جاءتهم البينات بغيا بينهم فهدى الله الذين آمنوا لما اختلفوا فيه من الحق بإذنه والله يهدي من يشاء إلى صراط مستقيم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that the people were all one. From the creation of Adam alayhi salam, the people, they had their foundation upon Tawheed. They had their foundation upon the obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then following and carrying out the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and staying away from His prohibitions. But then over time, the people, they began to start to follow their desires. And they started to think that there were other ways and other paths to choose other than the path that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had set down with the messengers. So then the people started to go astray. And they continued to go astray and following their desires until they started to commit shirk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala began to send the messengers, with the first messenger being Nuh alayhi salam. The first messenger to come to the people to return the people back to the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and return the people back to the understanding of Tawheed after the people followed their desires. So the people kana ummatan wahida. And then after that, after they began to differ and they go away, then go in different directions because of the people following their desires, that's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala started sending the messengers. Mubashirin wa mundhirin. Mubashirin. That means that they were giving glad tidings to the people that obeyed the messenger. And they stood up and they accepted Tawheed and they accepted this deen. And they began to take, carry out the commands of Allah and stay away from His prohibitions. Wa mundhirin, as warners against the people that refused and rejected the messengers, so that they will have if they die on that rejection, that they will have a painful punishment in Jahannam, wa na'udhu billahi min hadha. وَأَنزَلَ مَعَهُمَ الْكِتَابَ بِالْحَقِّ. And then after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that He sent down with them a book with truth. That this will be a guidance for the people to follow. You don't have to, sit here and rely on your own understanding and your own mind and your own desires. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to tell you this is the truth, and this is the path, and this is the sirat al-mustaqim that you're commanded to follow. It's not about what you feel. It's not about what your emotions. This truth, the book was sent down bil-haq, with truth. And it's meant to be followed. It's meant to be carried out, and the commands and the prohibitions stayed away from. So what happened to the people again? They start to follow their desires. And they don't want to obey the book. They think that something that's going on in their mind is more important than the book. Something that's going on in their mind and their understanding is more important than what the messenger came with. And then, of course, that's what we see the Muslims in the situation that we see today. Wallahu musta'an. He said, لَيَحْكُمَ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ فِي مَا اخْتَلَفُوا فِيهِ. So the ikhtilaf and the splitting, it came from the people's desires. It came from people following their desires and then other people following these people and leaving off the guidance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the messenger to yahkum baynahum. He judged between them to bring the people back to the correct understanding of Tawheed. Bring the people back to the correct understanding, the Quran, the Sunnah. And this is the purpose. إِلَى الَّذِينَ أُوتُوهُ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَتْهُمُ الْبَيِّنَاتُ بَعْدَ مَا بَغْيًا بَيْنَهُم. So you had a group from amongst them that even when the messenger came, they still, with the transgression in themselves, they couldn't accept the truth. And they still have to follow their desires. And they continue, and we continue to see this till today. The Quran, the Sunnah, everything is very clear, people. It's very, very clear. There's no difficulty. إِنَّ هَذَا الدِّينَ يُسْرٌ وَلَنْ يُشَادَّ الدِّينَ أَحَدٌ إِلَّا غَلَبَهُ. Just like the Prophet ﷺ said that this deen has been made easy for you. وَلَنْ يُشَادَّ الدِّينَ أَحَدٌ إِلَّا غَلَبَهُ. And nobody will, find severity or act severe in this deen except for what? That this deen will overpower him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us with unity to come together with Tawheed, with the Quran and the Sunnah. And He warned us in this ayah, as we see, from what? From ikhtilaf, from a tafarruq, from differing amongst each other and splitting up from each other. And this disunity that happens, it always happens because the people choose to follow what? They follow their desires. If we all follow the Quran and the Sunnah, and we take our understanding of the Quran and the Sunnah the way that the Sahaba understood it, how can we differ amongst each other? How can we differ? So this unity, this Quran, this Sunnah is the greatest blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. The greatest blessing. And how do we repay and thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this blessing that He's given us? Do we disunite? Do we fight against each other? Do we start following our own opinions? Is that the way that we show our gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Or do we submit? Because this is deen, this is Islam. It's about submission. Submission to the truth. And once we understand the truth, that's what we submit to. And to show that this is a blessing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَاعْتَصِمُوا what? وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا واذكروا إذ كنتم أعداء فألف بين قلوبكم واذكروا نعمة الله عليكم واذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ كنتم أعداء فألف بين قلوبكم فأصبحتم بنعمته إخوانا وكنتم على شفاء حفرة من النار فانقذكم منها كذلك يبين الله آياته لعلكم تهتدون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ. Al-habl is a rope. You hold tight to it. But He did not say, imsiku al-tamassik bihi. He said, i'tasimu bihi. Al-isma in this religion, al-isma is what? Is your protection, your safety. Your safety is with you holding fast to the Quran and the Sunnah. That's where we have our isma. It's not just holding tight to it, but holding it tight to it and knowing that our whole survival depends on this. Our life, our deaths, and in the next life, it all depends on how we hold fast to the Quran and the Sunnah in this life. Because as we are on the sirat al-mustaqim in this life, that's how we're going to be on the next life. If you start wibbly wobbling and you're falling on and falling off in this life, you're going to fall off in the next life. So He said, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ. Hold fast, hold tight, and find your protection. And what? And La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, and everything that comes with that. وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. And don't differ. And don't become disunited amongst each other. وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ. And remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's blessing upon you. إِن كُنتُمْ أَعْدَاءً فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ. You used to be enemies. Back before Islam came to you, you might have been fighting against each other. You see that this ayah was sent down to who? To the Ansar, to Aus wal Khazraj, because in Jahiliyyah, they used to fight, they used to have wars against each other, fighting constantly against each other, killing each other over what? Jahiliyyah, desires, opinions, and disagreements. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought them together. And He's telling them, remember this favor. But also in our time, look at the types of lifestyles that we grow up in. You have people that you were fighting against in Jahiliyyah. Fighting, they were your enemies. But here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought you together and united you together with Tawheed, with La ilaha illallah, with Muhammad Rasulullah, with Quran and Sunnah, and brought you together. What greater blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can bring two enemies together and make them what? Make them brothers. So He said, اذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ كنتم أعداء فألف بين قلوبكم فأصبحتم بنعمته what? إخوانا. And you became, with the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, brothers. وكنتم على شفا حفرة من النار فانقذكم منها. And in Jahiliyyah, you were living your life, no obedience to Allah, no concern with the commands and prohibitions of Allah. You're like on a cliff, about to fall into the hellfire. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pulled you out and saved you. He saved you. He gave you this deen, this beautiful deen. He didn't give you this deen just because you're somebody special. He didn't give you this deen because you deserve it. He gave you this deen to save you, to protect you, because maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saw something good in your heart. And He gave you this deen, gave you Islam. How many people are born into Islam? They're born into this blessing and don't even practice it. Don't even practice it. The fathers in the masjid, and the mothers sits with the sisters, and but the son doesn't even pray. He's born into this blessing, but he doesn't even know it. Doesn't even pray. Doesn't care about the deen. But Allah has given you this, given you the understanding of this blessing, and brought you all together. How are you going to show your gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? You show your gratitude in obedience to Him, by following the Quran and the Sunnah, by being united on Tawheed, being united on the Quran and the Sunnah, and not differing because of other external opinions of other people, or desires of other people. And He said, كنتم على شفاء حفرة من النار فانقذكم منها كذلك يبين الله لكم آياته لعلكم تهتدون. And like this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains His ayat, His signs. لعلكم تهتدون. So maybe that you might be guided. That you might be guided. Allahumma musta'an. And we know from the hadith of Abu Musa radiallahu anhu, in which he said, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم المؤمن للمؤمن كالبنيان يشد بعضه بعضا وشبك بين أصابعه. He said that a believer is to another believer like a bunyan, like a construction, like a building. Just like as you build in a building, each section of that building, it reinforces the other. And that's what we're supposed to be like. If we truly had the unity that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us to have, and we truly had the belief in Allah in the last days, and we truly followed the Quran and the Sunnah the way that we're supposed to follow it, this is why He said al-mu'min lil-mu'min. He did not say al-muslim lil-muslim. He said al-mu'min lil-mu'min kal-bunyan. Do we reinforce each other? Do we strengthen each other? When one of us starts to become weak, the other person has to pick up the slack and strengthen that brother. And we all have to help each other out. This is a communal duty. And this is not one person's job to establish this deen. This is all of our duties. To establish this deen on this earth. To practice this deen and stay in obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we strengthen each other. Sometimes I'm going to be weak. I don't feel like doing certain things, but other brothers are going to be there. And they're come on, let's do this. And it starts to motivate us. And that's how we have to be. But the only way that we can be like that is to be united, to work together. But work together with what? Quran, Sunnah, with the correct understanding. Not with desires, and not with external opinions, and not with any outside influence. Wallahu musta'an. وأقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين أستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashraf al-anbiya wal mursaleen. Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. It came in a hadith of Nu'man ibn Bashir radiyallahu anhuma, which he said, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم مثل المؤمنين فتوادهم وتراحمهم وتعاطفهم كمثل الجسد إذا اشتكى منه عضو تداعى له سائر الجسد بالسهر والحمى. This hadith is muttafaqun alayh, Bukhari and Muslim. So in this hadith, Nu'man ibn Bashir, he reported that the Prophet ﷺ said, he said the example, مثل المؤمنين فتوادهم, like the example of the believers with their love for each other, وتراحمهم, and the mercy that they show for each other, وتعاطفهم, and the emotions that they have for each other, the sympathy and the caring that they have for each other, كمثل الجسد. Alright, it's just like the body. إذا اشتكى منه عضو, if one part of the body begins to complain, تداعى سائر الجسد بالسهر والحمى, then the rest of the body becomes awake, when suffers from insomnia and starts to have a fever. And this is the way that we should be. We as brothers, as we're following the Quran and the Sunnah, we should feel pain when our brothers feel pain. When our brothers are suffering, we should also suffer. And we also delight at their delights. But it seems that nowadays we start to live in a time where the roles and everything are flipped. It's when a Muslim, when we start to see him getting something good, we get angry. Oh, well, he doesn't deserve this. Why does he get this? And then when he starts to suffer, we get happy. What has caused our hearts to become so poisoned and so toxic to the point that we look at each other like this? Wallahi akhi, you should look at your brother like that's your brother. That's the most beloved. The brothers here are the most beloved people to me, more than my own family, more than my mother, more than my father, more than anybody, the Muslims. And that's how we should view it. There's nothing outside of this brotherhood that matters to me. And it shouldn't matter to you either. What comes outside of this is just da'wah, calling the people to Islam. But this is our brotherhood. We should be happy with the brothers when something happens and something befalls a Muslim that's good. We're happy for him. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to put blessing in it. If something happens that's bad and befalls him, we sad with him. We suffer with him. And we also had that because we had that ta'atuf, we had that sympathy. We all have to work together to establish this deen. This is our duty, night and day, every single day. There's no vacations for this. So every day, the only way that we can do this is by working together. The brothers here, this is my only concern, right here. My concern is not the rest of America. My concern is not what's going on even in other cities in California. Right now, it's right here. We have the opportunity to set a standard of knowledge, of practice, of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that let the rest of the world follow behind us. The Muslims should not be following behind anybody in this dunya. Never. And I have that much faith in the Muslims because we have the ability. When we follow the correct guidance, we follow the Quran and the Sunnah, everybody should be up there, what? Behind us, following our lead. Look at us. We have the best morality. We're supposed to have the best manners. If we're raising each other, we're raising our children properly and doing the things that we're supposed to do. We're supposed to have the purest hearts. So how are all these kuffar going to lead us and tell us what to do and set the standards for us to follow? We set the standards for everybody else. And it starts right here. It starts here by setting standards amongst ourselves and holding each other to those high standards. It's not just about saying La ilaha illallah and oh, you're Muslim. You have to act on that. You have to live that. You know what I'm saying? You have to carry that out every single day. It's not about just saying something and then you're Muslim. There are shuruts, there's conditions, and there's lawazim, there's requirements, and you have to act on that every single day. It's a title that you earn as a Muslim every single day with no vacation. And we continue to work together, inshallah. We continue to teach each other. We sit down, we learn the Quran, we learn the Sunnah, and we practice it together, and we strengthen each other. And this is the way that we're going to be successful in this life. And this is the way that we're going to be successful, inshallah, in the next life. And this is the way that the people are going to follow behind us. They're going to take our lead. And we're not going to follow behind anybody anymore. Those days are done. The Muslims don't bow down for nobody. Nobody. We learn our deen, we practice this deen, and inshallah we die on la ilaha illallah. And that's all we're concerned about. والله المستعان. الله يثبتنا حتى نلقاه. الله يثبتنا على هذا الدين حتى نلقاه به. والله المستعان. أقيم الصلاة.